All right, you guys, this is Allegations lecture video 2. And as you can see, what I have posted here is at the beginning of the semester, I started off with a conversion sheet. And what I've done is I've taken the portion in regards to alligation formulas, and I have basically put this in a Word document so that you guys can kind of follow me along. But what I want you guys to do is I want you to look at what I've done here. And so what I'm basically telling you guys is that the very first step that you take with alligation problems is that you first draw and fill in your alligation grid. And I have basically told you guys that remember, your highest percentage goes in the top left hand corner, your lowest percentage goes in the lower left hand corner, and your desired percentage goes in the middle. You have to subtract diagonally on both sides to get the parts needed for your highest and your lowest. All right. And then you ask yourself, your second step, you ask yourself, does the given quantity, does it go to the highest, the lowest, or the desired percentage? All right. And depending on how you answer that question is how you would solve the problem. So I'm telling you that if the given quantity goes for the desired percentage, then you're going to have to solve the problem using these two formulas. All right. If the given quantity goes for the highest or the lowest percentage, then you're going to have to solve it. If it goes for the highest, you're going to solve it using this formula. Or if it goes for the lowest, you're going to solve it for this formula. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's do some practice problems. So I want you guys to turn to page 543. So we're going to look at practice problems on page, where are these? Practice problems D, I believe these are D. Practice problems D on page 543. All right. And so what they want us to do for the very first one, number 1, it says that on hand is a 6% solution and a 15% solution. So I'm going to identify my components. In stock, I have a 6% and I have a 15%, it says. All right. And it tells us to prepare 500 milliliters of a 10% solution. So whatever you're preparing is your prescription. All right. So now that I know that's what I'm preparing, then I can go ahead and draw my alligation grid. I know that this is an alligation problem because I have what? 3 concentrations that are all expressed in percentages. All right. I have a 6, a 15, and a 10. All right. So the first thing you guys need to do is draw your alligation grid. Your highest stock percent goes in the top left-hand corner. Your lowest stock percent goes in the lower left-hand corner. And your desired percentage goes in the middle. All right. So I am going to subtract diagonally. I'm going to, well, first, before you do that, you ask yourself, does the desired concentration, which is 10, all right, does the desired concentration fall in between the 6 and the 15? Well, yes, if I count from 6 to 15, I'm going to hit 10, all right? So now that I know it's set up correctly, I'm going to subtract diagonally. So 15 minus 10 gives you 5. And 6 minus 10 gives you Of course, it gives you a -4, but keep in mind that when solving alligation problems and subtracting diagonally, you keep them in an absolute value. So it's going to be a +4. All right. So the next step that you need to take is you ask yourself that given quantity of 500 milliliters, does it go to the highest percent of 15, the lowest percent of 6, or does it go to the desired percentage of 10? Well, it goes to the 10%. Why am I asking that? Because I told you after the first step, after you draw and fill in your alligation grid, your second step is to ask yourself, does the given quantity go for the highest, the lowest, or the desired? If the given quantity goes for the desired percentage, you have to use both of these formulas, your highest formula and your lowest formula, because you're going to get two quantities. All right, so now that I know that I'm going to have to use that formula, I'm going to have to get the parts needed. All right, the total parts needed. In order to determine the total parts needed, you're going to have to add that 4 parts of the 15% and 5 parts of the 6% together. 4 plus 5 is 9. So you need 9 total parts. So now I can solve the problem by taking, for the 15%, I'm going to take the parts needed, which is 4, over the total parts of 9 and multiply it by 500 milliliters, right? So 4 over 9 times 500 gives me what? 222.2 milliliters, all right? All right, so same thing with the 6%. I'm running out of room here, but for the 6%, I'm going to take the parts needed, which is 5, over the total parts of 9, and I'm going to multiply it by 500 milliliters. So if you take 5 over 9 and multiply it by 500, I think you guys get what? 277 we're going to round it to the nearest 10, so 0.8 milliliters. If you add 277.8 plus 222.2, you should get 500 milliliters. So that means my answer is right. So I only need 222.2 milliliters of the 15% and 277.8 milliliters of the 6%. All right. And that's how you will solve the very first one. That's how we will solve number 1. All right, you guys. So let's look at number 2. We're still on page 543. And so number 2 states that available are 2 ointment strengths containing 5% boric acid and 20% boric acid. So what that means, I'm going to identify my components. That means that in stock, I have a 5% and it says a 20%, correct? And it says for us to prepare, so whatever you're preparing is your prescription, what the doctor is asking. It says to prepare 1 gram of a 12.5% ointment. All right. So because this is an ointment and the given quantity is in grams, that means when you solve your problem, it's going to be in grams, all right? It's not a liquid. So the very first step that I'm going to take is, I know this is an alligation problem because I'm given 3 concentrations, 5%, 20%, and a 12.5%, all expressed in percentages. So now I'm going to draw my alligation grid. Okay, so I am drawing my alligation grid. And remember, the top left-hand corner is your highest stock percentage, which is 20. My lower left-hand corner is the lowest stock percentage, which is 5. And the desired stock percentage goes in the middle, which is 12.5. So before I subtract diagonally, I'm going to ask myself, does the desired percentage fall in between my highest and my lowest? Well, if I count from 5 to 20, I am going to come across 12.5. So because I know it falls in between, it is correct. So I'm going to subtract diagonally. So 20 minus 12.5 gives you 7.5. So I need 7.5 parts of 5%. I'm going to write it out so you guys can see it. All right. If I say 5 minus 12.5, that gives me 7.5 parts of the 20%. So my next step before I do anything else, I ask myself, does the given quantity, that 1 grams, does it go to the highest percentage, which is 20%? Does it go to the lowest percentage, which is 5%? Or does it go to the desired percentage, which is 12.5? Well, it goes to the desired, which is 12.5. So because of that, remember my little rule here, that if the given quantity goes to the desired percentage, you have to use these two formulas, where you take first, you have to determine what your total parts is. So we know that 7.5 plus 7.5 is what? 15 total parts. So for the 20%, you're going to take the parts needed, which is 7.5 parts, over 15 parts and multiply that by 1 gram. So if I take 7.5 over 15, and multiply that by 1, that gives me 0.5 grams. Well, you're going to do the same thing for the 5%. Well, the parts needed is the same, 7.5 parts over 15 multiplied by 1 gram, still gives you 0.5 grams. If you add these two together, you get what? 1 gram, which is what you need to make. So you need 0.5 grams of the 20% and 0.5 grams of the 5% in order to make 1 full grams that will have a concentration of 12.5%. That is how you would solve number 2. So as you continue to keep practicing these alligation problems, they're going to come very easy, much easier to you. I will pick back up in the next video number 4. We're just going to keep solving these problems. And I do apologize if you hear my daughter in the background. She's greeting her daddy as he comes home this evening. But we're going to pick right back up in video number 4 with some more practice problems.